present moment in time, we're farming 470 ewes and 140 ewe lambs, and we've got 84 cows to the bull at the moment, 44 store cattle, and we're farming at sort of 230 metres to 300 metres above sea level. And we've also probably farming soils that are kind of clay, loam silt soils over some sort of steeper ground that's got rock on it and gravel down the valley bottom next to the river.
Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc beef podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and on this week's episode, I'm joined by Scottish beef and sheep farmer Graham Lofthouse to discuss his mixed farming system. Graham, you're very welcome and thanks very much for coming on the podcast. Before we begin, can you give an overview of your farm?
Bankhouse Farm's a 109 hectare farm in the Scottish borders. It's been owned by my family since 1964. We rent a further 35 hectares, so we're farming about 144 hectares in total. The 35 hectares that's rented is on seasonal lets and some on 364-day lets. We're farming about 30 miles south of Edinburgh, for those that maybe know Scotland at all, in the Scottish borders. We're farming at sort of 230 metres to 300 metres above sea level. We've probably got an average rainfall of about 1,000 millimetres a year, probably increasing all the time with the heavy rainfall we're getting that everybody sort of understands. And we've also probably farming soils that are kind of clay, loam silt soils over some sort of steeper ground that's got rock on it and gravel down the valley bottom next to the river. At the present moment in time, we're farming 470 ewes and 140 ewe lambs. They're a wool shedding breed, an easy care, and we've had them for 19 years. And we've also got a herd of cattle, which is obviously what you're on to speak about, really. And we've got 84 cows to the bull at the moment, 44 store cattle, and we did have 17 bulls and 7 other bullocks that were intensely finished this year. 14 of them are sold, and there's only 3 left to go at the present moment in time. And that's a kind of overview of what our farm is.
That's great, Graham. And how is the suckler herd managed from birth to weaning?
It's a fairly simple system. Due to our sort of elevation and being a grass-based system here at home, we're obviously rotationally grazing pretty much everything, or set stock where we have to be, but try to rotationally graze as much as we can. Cattle are housed inside over the winter. We're on low-level slats with a scraper system, so we can't calve inside. Straw in our area is difficult to come by and quite costly. So we're calving outside from the 28th of April for a sort of 9-week period, but most of our cows will calve within sort of 7 weeks. The cows are calving in 2 groups, I suppose, outside. Really the sort of first calved or heifers that are going to calve for the first time, first calved heifers are coming up for their second calve, obviously, and then the mature cows in a separate group. And we're rotationally grazing them from calving time, and we're kind of drift calving. So basically, cows will calve in a paddock, and then we'll move the cows on after 2 or 3 days to the next paddock. And generally, the cows with the calves that have been born in those 2 or 3 days will be left behind. And that means we can drift them out off on a different ground and then eventually group them up to rotate them as a group before bulling time. And I suppose bulling kicks off on the 18th of July, so we've been bulling for a wee while now. And then they're grazed until November time. And we kind of bring them in 2 groups in the autumn, basically.
And breeding and genetics are very important on the farm. You're very conscious in your system of hybrid vigor and mixed breeds. Can you talk through your breeding policy and the different breeds that you have on the farm?
I mean, at the moment, we've got quite a diverse groups on the farm, I suppose, or breeding that we've had, because we've used AI for a long time on it. So at the present moment in time, we've got predominantly Aberdeen Angus, but we've also got stabilizer genetics in there, some Hereford in there, and some Simmental, which was the original sort of stuff that we had in there, where we had a Simmental cross Limousin herd. We're increasingly going down the Aberdeen Angus route, probably from a sales perspective more than anything else. I mean, we're selling 14 to 16-month-old store cattle predominantly, although, as I said earlier on in my opening piece, we did finish some bulls this year and a few bullocks. But generally, we're selling forward stores in our sort of area, in our kind of marketplace. Aberdeen Anguses sell particularly well. We're looking more and more at going down the Aberdeen Angus route from, well, one type of animal to sell. It's a premium breed, basically, stores and finished to attract a premium price. So we're going down the Aberdeen Angus route, but no breed. I wouldn't, I would always look at every breed. I think it's a type of animal I'm looking for. I'm looking for a kind of 640 kilo cow. Um, and she's got to be an efficient, easily fleshed cow that calves herself, basically, Catherine.
Most definitely, Graham. And you did mention there at the start that you had some cattle that were finished earlier. What was your plan for finishing those cattle on the farm, and how were they managed?
Yeah, I mean, this year it was a bit different. We thought we were going to lose a bit of rented ground, so we actually left. Well, we had 15 bulls entire, and then we had another 10 bullocks that we added to the group, just to make up a group on a buried court in the winter. So yeah, they were on intensive finish. They were on barley and dark grains mix from basically November time right through till they were finished. We've got three left on farm at the moment. One's actually being held back as a kind of sweeper bull just in case we need an extra bull on farm. We're not actually using any AI this year for various reasons, but we have two good Angus bulls, so we're using them, and we've kept one bull as a sweeper bull. He'll eventually go before he's 16 months old, but the bulls performed really well. They averaged 1.62 kilos a day. That was about 0.87 of a kilogram dead weight a day. They all went through ABP at Stirling. Just as a sort of comparison, the bullocks that have gone, they only averaged 0.7 of a kilo dead weight a day, but basically received the same amount of feed. So obviously a higher daily live weight or daily feed cost on the bullocks versus the bulls. And the bulls were killed at an average age of 13 months, and their average value was £1,630 for those bulls. So they performed pretty well, but they do carry quite a high feed cost, those bulls. Compared with our grass-based system, yeah, it's a longer system having the cattle out at grass and selling forward stores, but performance-wise, we're getting good growth rates with those cattle at grass. We're doing about 1.2 kilos a day at the moment at grass with the cattle. A fraction of the cost-wise. We're absorbing grass and extra, basically any grass we're growing excess, we're absorbing with store cattle and turning that into kilos. So it's a quite a cheap system. And last year well, not this year, but last year we averaged £1,500 for store cattle at 14 to 16 month old. So not a massive difference in value. Obviously a longer time keep by a good few months, but a cheaper system probably for us.
And looking forward for the bulls and heifers that's there on the farm at the moment, what do you think they'll be done with next year?
I think this year all the cattle this year so far have been castrated. All the calves have been castrated, so we'll be going with all bullocks again this year. Fairly comfortable that we're going to have the grazing that we'll require for that. The bullocks probably just offer us greater flexibility. If we don't have the grass in the spring, we can always sell some as yearlings straight out the shed. There's always a market for these kind of Angus cattle in the spring. Probably the more forward ones. So I think the bullocks give us a simpler, more straightforward system to work. So basically, bullocks and heifers are a simpler system than having the bulls for us. And we're also having to buy in all the feed. I mean, it's pretty much the same in Ireland. I know generally everybody will buy in feed. The grass is obviously a fixed cost generally, and it's a fairly low cost system for us.
And really, your main focus is maximising weight gain from grass there that you mentioned.
Yes.
How is grass managed on the farm?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier on, we're operating that kind of rotational grazing system where we can. Not every part of the farm suits rotationally grazing, but where we can, we are. I think we've got a platform of about 77 hectares at the moment that's getting rotationally grazed. So the store cattle would go out in spring as early as we can, and we'll be looking for them to be out by early April. I know that's not as early as you would be in Ireland, but it's probably as early as we can manage here. We have had them out in late March before, but that would probably be quite early for us to get them out at the beginning of April. And then we're just looking for them to gain as many kilos as they can over that time period until about sale time is normally for us in early September, when grass growth starts to diminish and grass budget starts to change for us. But those cattle will be kind of moved every 2 to 3 days on paddock system this year. We do sometimes operate a techno grazing system, which would be a lane of about 100 metres wide, front to back, and a catch wire, and we would move them daily on that system. I know you've been here and understand the spread out nature of a farm. We're covering about 7.6 kilometres. So we've got a big spread out sort of farm. If the cattle are at the far end, it's simpler just to move them every 2 or 3 days, which is where they've been this year. When they're at home next year, they'll probably be on the techno grazing, which will be kind of daily shifts. You really start to see the benefit of that in recovery of the grass and the performance of the cattle. They just love it. I mean, we've had cattle doing up to 1.5 kilos a day on grass on the techno system before, so very high performance and very efficient.
You mentioned the techno system that you're operating. How do you find mixing beef and sheep groups or grazing them together and grazing them separately as a mixed grazing system?
Yeah, the grazing system. So, I mean, on rotational grazing, we don't ever mix sheep and cattle together. I have actually made a mistake once of putting cattle and sheep in the same field when cows had newborn calves, and actually had a couple of lambs got attacked and one got killed actually by a cow on a newborn lamb. So we don't actually mix cows and calves in the same area. We tend to do a leader-follower system. To be honest, the cattle are a bit of a slave to the sheep here. Obviously, we're running quite a number of ewes, and the cattle, it's almost a 50-50 split. The cattle are doing a lot of work for the sheep, basically, clearing up grass behind sheep. So allocating the best quality stuff to the sheep, and then the cows coming in behind, or a group of 40 of the cows, not more or less half the cows coming in behind them and tidying up that grass down to about 1,600 kilos of dry matter, so about 4 centimetres. They work really well on the system when you've got that leader follower going. We tend to keep the cattle in their own areas most years, so the sheep will have a dedicated area, and the cattle have a dedicated area, and the cattle have silage in their area as well at the same time. So we drop out grass as it grows excessively to what the cow require for silage. And then obviously, as we need to, we'll take cows into the sheep system, or one group of cows. The mature cows generally will go into that sheep system to tidy up grass for them. So yeah, keep it fairly fixed in the sense of like not mixing in a field, but using the best assets of both animals to utilise the grass as much as we can, I suppose.
And you put a huge emphasis, Graham, on the clover on the farm and in the sward. What impact do you think that has had on the amount of fertiliser you're using on the farm and overall soil fertility?
Yeah, I mean, it's had a big impact. I mean, over the years, we sort of gradually started to trust clover more, I suppose. Started moving. I suppose the rotational grazing system, I was obviously a bit concerned about whether I would be able to maintain the clover in the grass that I did before under set stock system. I suppose I've been rotationally grazing for nearly 19 years now. So I probably should have trusted it a bit more quickly, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, we're down to about 42 kilos. I think I've got here. Yeah, 42 kilos of synthetic N will go in this year across the whole farm, and that includes silage ground. So every hectare would have received a maximum of 42 kilos of N a hectare. 25 of that will go on in the spring, and then there's obviously stuff to silage ground after that. And we're growing, well, last year we grew 8.5 tonne of dry matter, which is a fraction of what you guys will grow in Ireland. But this year we're on track for just over 10 tonne. I suppose the last 2 years we've had fairly severe droughts in our area in Scotland, which has really impinged grass growth. So this year we'll be up into 10 tonne plus, I would say. And probably explains why we've got a big cover in front of us at the present with 2,400 kilos of dry matter in front of us, Crom. So we're sitting with quite a big cover, and target's really only 2,300 at the moment. Managing the clover is the big factor. So I suppose getting the residual down, allowing it to recover, but not getting a big canopy up on top. Because clover likes light, like we all know. So probably getting up to about 3 tonne would be kind of where I was wanting to be. Cattle or sheep in, graze it down, off we go again. So just manage that clover, maximise its potential, but It's all temperature driven. I mean, we've certainly seen slower clover growth and usage, the ability for clover to nodulate and stuff this year because we've had colder temperatures in the spring, cold through the middle of the summer, and it probably only in the last sort of month, 6 weeks that clover's really, really taken off. We're probably sitting with kind of, I don't know, at least 50% cover, I would say, across fields of clover. And some of them are mixed white and red. So it's a big thing for us. And we certainly see benefits with the sheep, especially growth rate wise. Cattle too. I mean, you're just getting high quality, high digestible feed into them all the time. So yeah, that's where we're at, Catherine.
And looking to the future, you're very conscious on the farm of managing cost of production. What do you see as things that you're currently doing, that you're going to stay doing, or that you're considering doing into the future that will ensure that you have a profitable business going forward?
Yeah, I think going forward, it's like maybe a bit of a cliche or a bit sort of overemphasized or said before by others. I suppose continue to improve grassland management and utilization is a big factor. I don't think you can ever get it perfect. So always striving to get the most out of grass that I can, just because it's the lowest cost feed, highest quality feed I've got on farm. Um, Improving the genetics of the livestock we've got, I suppose, as well. Getting out there and learning. I suppose it's a big factor. I think we're never going to stop learning. I'm really keen to get out there and learn from others. I think grow the business. I'd like to grow the business bigger, but that's generally not always possible, depending on what opportunities come up and stuff like that. And I suppose don't be afraid to look outside the box for a different opportunity. And maybe doesn't have to be within agriculture or directly associated to agriculture. Um, so yeah, I think just keeping an open mind for any and every opportunity that comes along. But for us, for the farm, I think just managing that grass and managing the livestock and keeping the productivity up and yeah, try to get as much as we can out of the cattle. I mean, it's daily live weight gain, live calves on the ground, number of cows in calf are the big factors there.
That's great, Graham. Thanks very much for the insight on your farm system, and we wish you the very best of luck.
Thanks very much, Catherine. Appreciate it.
That's all for this week, and my thanks to Graham for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.